Sometimes I wonder if Father's Day didn't get the same emphasis as Mother's Day. Look at the guy sitting next to you. Sorry. I say that because I know fathers have changed being a dad. When I was a kid, I remember my dad, my mom, one time he was always working, but one time he took a nap on the couch in the living room, and we went to go in the house, and she said, go outside, be quiet. Shh, Dad is sleeping, be quiet. And I remember taking a nap once on the couch, and my kids slapped me in the face, opened my eyelids, say, Daddy, wake up. And Sharon said, get up. Father's Day began in 1910. There was a woman named Sonora Smart Dodd. I got a picture of her. And she went to church, and that Sunday was Mother's Day at church. And the guy did a great message for Mother's Day. And she went up to the pastor. She said, my mother died when I was really young, but my father raised me and my 8 brothers and sisters. And he had been in the Civil War. This was a long time ago. He'd been in the Civil War and came home, and he was a great dad. And she said, we ought to recognize the fathers. And that became something that she promoted, and they started in the town where she lived in Spokane, Washington, and it spread, and eventually it became signed into a real thing, that the third Sunday in June would be Father's Day. And so that's how we got it. Today we remember the good things about Father's Day, and my series has been going through what does it mean to be a neighbor to another person. We started off by looking at how Jesus answered that question, and then we've been looking at the different kinds of folks in this community and how we're supposed to step up and be a neighbor to them. And it fits perfectly with what today is, because today I want to talk about the parentless child and the surviving spouse. And I'm probably going to emphasize the child, kids without a dad, some kids without both parents. And so that's what we're looking at. And we're going to look, there's a wonderful verse, the book of James, chapter 1, verse 27. James says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure. He's not talking about religion in a negative fashion. He's saying, church, your Christianity that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, and this is how he defines it: to keep oneself, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. So to care for those who don't have a dad or a mom, and look after widows in distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. That's stained by the world. You can think if you fall down in the grass, you stain your knee, you have a stain, something from the grass gets on you. And sometimes being in the world we live can stain us. We can take on the characteristic and qualities of the world in which we live. And unfortunately, just like the first century, the fatherless children or the parentless child, widows, are not taken care of like we should. And so as a church in this community, we ought to be reaching out to folks. Here are some facts about that. In the United States, about 3.7 million children live with neither of their parents. Maybe grandparents, maybe another relative, maybe in foster care. 23% of children in the U.S. live with their mother only. It's just the facts. 4% of children in the U.S. live with their father only. And so if you looked at the numbers, 19 million children live without a father in the home, with no father. And these are just people who live in the home. There are homes that you have a parent, but the parent doesn't really engage. They're not there for the child. And so there's a lot of kids who grow up without a dad, even though dad might be in the house. And so around 400,000 children right now are in foster care. Okay, that's with the children. Now, what about in the U.S., 16% of widows live below the poverty line, over 1.7 million women. Worldwide, it's estimated that 215 million widows live in devastating poverty. Household income generally declines by about 40% after a spouse dies. That's the way things are set up economically in our culture today. And so there are many folks who this verse speaks to when it says religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faithful, faultless, is this: to look after orphans, the fatherless, and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. So the point is, God has a heart for the parentless child and their surviving spouse. And as a community of faith and as individuals, we need to have a heart. We need to live out our faith, not just by attending the service, but by using our ability to connect with others to help those who are without a father, or without a parent, or who are surviving spouse. If you look it up, I found over 130 verses in the Bible that talk about helping the fatherless and the widowed. And, of course, I don't have time to read 130 to you right now, but I've got a handful, because when you see something over and over in the scriptures, it becomes really clear when you look at it in totality that this is a major deal within the Bible, what it means to be a Christian. I'll share a few of those verses with you. Deuteronomy 10:18 says, God defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. Deuteronomy 27:19 says, cursed is anyone who withholds justice from the foreigner, or withholds justice from the fatherless or the widow. And all people shall say, Amen. Psalm 68:5 says, a father to the fatherless, a defender of widows is God in his holy dwelling. This is what God is, and this is what you should be and I should be. Stepping up to those who don't have, and there's a lot of them. If we just drew a circle, 40 miles or 20 miles, maybe even 10 miles around our church, you would find people that qualify for what we're reading about. Maybe some of us today are in this category. I'm certain of it. Zechariah 7:10 says this, do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against each other. And Isaiah 1:17 says, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. And Matthew 18:5, Jesus is beautiful. Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. So if you welcome a child who is not being parented, if you come along and encourage them and do something, you're welcoming Jesus. That's the way that we're supposed to be. That should be at the heart of what it means to be practicing religion in a positive sense. So I want to just spend a moment talking about 3 gifts that men can give children and students, young people, and women can do this too. But there's something about the fact that I think men can pour into girls and boys that's important. Number 1, build into them a healthy sense of self-worth. Don't make them prideful. Don't encourage them to become arrogant, but to help them see what God sees. Now, some of us shop at places, and sometimes we look for the deals, and you might look for a tag that says damaged goods. Sometimes you can get, a pair of pants or a shirt or something, and you can't even tell what's damaged. It says there's something damaged, but you look it over. Well, there are young people today that view themselves this way. They may look all right on the outside, but inside, they're damaged goods. Inside, they struggle with stuff. Maybe they struggle because they're dealing with poverty in ways that other people don't know. There are kids that live in this community that over the summer get a lot hungrier because they don't have the breakfasts and lunches that they're getting at school. And so as a community, as a church, we ought to be reaching out and helping and pouring good into them, not only financially, but other things that they need. I look at what was so important to me growing up is I had a mom and dad who loved me. I really did. Here's a picture of my mom and dad. They got married. By the way, I'll tell you a little background. Actually, I'm not going to tell that story because some things are private. I don't want to tell. They're too special. But my dad and mom loved me and loved my brothers and sisters. They poured into me. My dad, he got Alzheimer's early, and when I was in college, he died shortly after that. And this picture is taken at my brother's wedding. My little brother, who's Bart, standing in the back. And that's me when I was a little bit younger. I had hair and it was not all gray. That's my beautiful sister, Suzanne, my other brother, Keith, who I beat in golf all the time. No, he's watching this so he'd be laughing. And that's my mom. But my dad and mom poured into us. I love this picture because I know that they are good people. We are flawed. We have problems. Our family has problems. But we had a mom and dad that loved us, that poured into us. And it gave us a sense of, that we were loved. Psalm 139, 13, 14 says this, "For you were created, God created you, God created us in our inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well." There's a bunch of kids that do not know that. They didn't have parents like I did, maybe like you did. They don't know what it's like to feel like they are wonderfully made and that they are loved. And so what we have to do is we have to pour that into them. How do you do that? 3 simple ways. One is a word. That means when you see a kid around the church or in the community, get to know their names. Next time you see them, use their names. So how you doing? Use your names. We live in a world today where their schools sometimes are so big, and sometimes a lot of things, everybody gets lost. And in America, churches can get like that. The churches that seem to be doing well have so many people. It's like going to the movie theater. Lots of people, exciting, but nobody really knows each other. And so in our church, my goal is for us to get to know each other and to encourage each other. Use a word. I don't care if you say, "Hey, I like your shoes," or "What's your favorite thing to eat?" Something that gets them to talking a little bit. A word. Second, a look. Anybody who's been around kids knows this. You ever seen a kid say something like this? "Hey, Dad, look." Hey, Dad, watch this. Hey, Mom, watch this. Watch this. Kids need to be seen. They need to be looked at. They need to be recognized. We need to notice. A lot of people go unnoticed. And so to look at them, to notice when things happen. I have somebody that gave me advice. He said, every time you see your wife, tell her, oh, your hair looks good. Did you just get it cut? Because that way you'll never forget if she did get it cut. Better plan is just pay attention. Look at them. Third, a touch. And this can become controversial because people say, oh, well, you don't want to touch kids because you can get in trouble for that. If you read in the Bible, Mark 10:16, it says, Jesus took the children in his arms, he put his hands on them and blessed them. Sometimes just putting your hand on somebody's shoulder, in a group setting, just touching them and say, hey, how you doing today? You look nice. Give them a touch, a word, a look. And it's not just, I guess, the same with widows. This is just to be there for people. Second, help them to become competent. I think this is important. We live in a world where now kids get participation trophies, and a lot of times parents tell their kids, you're the smartest person in that school. And it may not be the truth. But if you tell the kid, you can be as smart as you study. And if you work hard, you will learn more. You'll be able to do things you didn't think you could do. And help them learn to something that they're competent in. Everybody needs to feel competent in something. I don't know what it might be. I know I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day, and he was telling me in his church, they did this thing where they were teaching the teenagers how to work on a car. And he said, we took them to this car, and we opened up the hood, and the first thing we did, we said, all right, tell me what you see that you know what it is. And a lot of the kids said, I don't know what nothing is. And finally somebody said, that's a battery. You need to learn something about cars. If you're going to drive one, I know my Sharon's niece, our niece, was telling me that her dad taught her how to get out of a trunk that's locked. And I thought, wow, that sounds like child abuse. But it wasn't. He was standing right there, and he says, I'm going to put you in this trunk, and you show me how to get out. See, you may not know this, but almost every trunk has a get out button. Did you know that? Well, I hope you're never locked in a trunk. But Barb, now this girl knows how to do that. To teach kids a competence. I love this cause program that we have. They've taught kids how to start a fire without matches, how to shoot a bow, how to handle a gun appropriately. There's some competence. You're teaching them something and competence about the Bible. When I first came to church, one of the reasons I didn't go to church is I was afraid somebody would ask me something and I didn't know anything about the Bible. And so to teach kids, what are the books of the Bible? Where are they? If somebody asks you to look something up, do you know where to look? Do you know where the table of contents is? Do you know that you're not the only one that doesn't know this? To teach them some competence in their living out their faith, which leads to the third one, is to give young people today a spiritual foundation. Somebody might say out there, well, I don't want to indoctrinate my kids. Let them just find their own way. That doesn't work. We live in a world that's continually trying to indoctrinate people, not in a good way most of the time. And so you have to impress upon them. Deuteronomy has a great model for this. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. not just in the Bible, but in your mind, in your memory, available to you. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Not just at Sunday school. Yeah, we need to have a good Sunday school program. We need to have a good vacation Bible school program. You also need to teach them every day in small ways about honesty, about what it means to do the right thing, about, the important things in life. And, they need to learn this so that they understand, well, this is what you do. And it doesn't mean you're perfect. You might be driving your car and somebody might pull in front of you and you lose your temper. And then after it's over with, you say, Daddy's not perfect, is he? And sometimes I get out of hand. I pray for forgiveness. Everything is a teaching moment. There's a guy, John Ortberg, who tells a story that I thought was really good. He talks about his dad, who was a farmer, and that at one time, all the farms in the community were really hurting. They were basically smaller farms in that community, and they were going through some struggles with the weather being dry and the farm's not doing well, and all of them were kind of going through it. And one day he was riding with his dad down the road, and they noticed their neighbor just got a brand new F-350 Ford pickup truck with all the bells and whistles. And he said, "Daddy, isn't that great?" The boy did. And the dad said, I don't think so, because I know that guy. He owes everybody in the county. And here he went out and bought that brand new truck on credit. He said, "What do you think about that, son? Do you think that's the right thing to do? You think that's a wise thing to do?" And when they talked about being a steward with what God gives you in everyday things, to be able to understand how important that is. And in your life and my life, we got to be putting into these kids because kids need it. There's a Spanish story of a father and son who had become estranged, and the father had left, and later on he decided he wanted to go back. He couldn't find his son, and he searched and searched for months, no avail. Finally, in the town, it was Madrid, and he put a little blurb in the newspaper there in Madrid, and the ad read, "Dear Paco, meet me in front of this newspaper office at noon on Saturday. All is forgiven. I love you, your papa." On Saturday, over 300 Pacos showed up, looking for forgiveness and love from their fathers. We live in a world today where kids need God. There was a man who was on Sunday afternoon watching some sports on TV. Maybe it was some football, I think. And he's watching the game, and his son was playing on the floor in front of him. His son had just come back from church, and his son was playing with his toys, and he started talking to his dad, and his dad wasn't really paying attention. But finally, the boy climbed up in his dad's lap and looked him right in the face. And sometimes, how kids say, grab your face and everything, And he said, "Daddy, do you know what the Sunday school teacher asked me?" And he said, "Oh, what, son? What, son?" But he was watching the TV, and the boy said, she asked me, if I died, did I want to go to heaven or did I want to go to hell? And the father stopped watching football and said, "Well, son, what did you tell your Sunday school teacher?" And the little boy looked up at his dad and said, "I told her I want to go wherever my dad goes." And he was so convicted about that because he hadn't been to church and when he could remember when. And he realized he wasn't being the father he needed to be. Kids learn from what we do more than what we say. You got to live out your faith. And so this message is for us today to step up for when we see kids in our community, in this community, around us. Remember what a positive influence that God is commanding us to be on them. When I was growing up, I played my senior year of high school, I played football, and I was kind of small, but I made up for it by being really slow. And I didn't do a lot of playing on the field. And my parents didn't come to the games because they just didn't. My Sunday school teacher, Myron Maxey, at this Forest Park Baptist Church in the south side of Atlanta, he came to every football game I was in. And in that play that I got in, where I think I actually tripped him instead of tackled him, but I tackled this guy. The next Sunday, he said in front of the other boys in the class, we had a boys' class, he said, "Did you see Scott last week? He made that tackle, made a really good tackle last week." And he also was the man that first gave me a Bible. And he invested in me. And I haven't seen him since I was 21 years old. I haven't seen Myron Maxey. But I remember what he did for me. And I am going to try to do that to other people. They may not be my kids. I wasn't his kid, but he invested in me. God's calling us to be that kind of person. And I pray that we live up to it. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your Son that came to give us new life. You loved us so much that your Son came to teach us how to live and then to forgive us so much that you went to the cross for us. Lord, I pray that you would help us to be there for others. We thank you for those in this church who over the years have invested so much in young people. I pray for our official programs in the church. I pray for our Sunday school teachers. I pray for our vacation Bible school. I pray for Jenny in the youth program and the children's program. I pray for the music, Lord, and all that. And Lord, help us to be responsible. Help us to step up and be what you've called us to be. I pray that our faith might be real. In Jesus' strong name we pray. All God's people prayed. Amen.